twins, it's just Martine, and welcome to my Hollywood Studios vlog for the magical Hopathon. If you want to see my last video about the magical Hopathon, I'll leave it right here. Let's get straight into my TBR. So since I started with Epcot, I already have park admission, and from here on out, I can just hop to the next part without having to read an admission ticket book, which is super handy. So I only have 3 books to read for this Hollywood Studios vlog, and one I've actually just finished. So like, I'm starting this vlog a little late, but whatever. So the attraction that I picked is Rock and Roller Coaster. It was very difficult for me to pick between Rock and Roller Coaster and Tower of Terror because I love them both. However, for the longest time in my life, I avoided Rock and Roller Coaster because I thought I didn't like rides that flipped upside down. And then after one special trip to SeaWorld with my dad, brother, and sister, we went on our first like upside down roller coaster and loved it so much. I've got a very sensitive stomach, but for some reason not during roller coasters. And riding intense roller coasters is also weird for me because I tend to take off my glasses, which adds this whole other like confusing dimension. But I chose Rock and Roller Coaster because it's one of my favorite Disney rides ever. I love the fact that you get to listen to good music on your way in. I like getting in the single rider's line with my siblings, chatting it up the whole way, it being less of a wait, and then we're pretty close together in the car, but we're not like sitting together, and that's fine. I love all single rider lines at Disney. My siblings and I go through like so many single rider lines because you have somebody to spend the line with, but like we don't care about sitting next to each other for the actual ride. It was also hard to choose because I have this really sick picture that I took of the Tower of Terror when I went to Hollywood Studios with Harris like 2 years ago now. But ultimately, I went for Rock and Roller Coaster. The prompt for Rock and Roller Coaster is to read a fast-paced book. So I chose Out of Time by B.R. Paulson. Turns out that on Goodreads, it's actually called No Time. Whatever. That was really confusing to find, but I'll talk about that in a second. After I go on my attraction, my stomach still feels like pretty good. It's getting in the afternoon. Maybe it's lunchtime, you know? So I'm going to get a food to eat. Now, my thing about the snacks that were listed as prompts for Hollywood Studios are, I've never tried any of them. So I didn't have one that I was like, ooh, that's a snack I actually enjoy. And actually the one I ended up picking is not vegetarian, but I chose it for the prompt instead, you know? So anyway, I chose Ronto Wrap, and the prompt for that is to read a book that's outside of your typical genre. And I'm going to be reading The Green Platoon because, I mean, look at it. Does it look like my typical genre? I don't feel like it feels like my typical genre, and I don't know anything about it. That is my typical genre, the I know nothing about it type of book. That's what I read. Nevertheless, I'm going to be reading The Green Platoon for that. Finally, there's a show. Now, this is the hardest decision for Hollywood Studios because there's so many good shows and so many good show prompts that were provided. I was even watching Rachel's TBR the other day. Rachel created the Magical Hopathon. I'll have her channel link down below. But I was watching her TBR and she was talking about her prompt for the Indiana Jones show Spectacular. And I was like, oh man, why didn't I pick that? I love the Indiana Jones show, right? So I was floored. I was like, why didn't I pick that? So I opened up my like Notion page where I had my tentative TBR. And of course it was because I had picked a show that I love even more than Indiana Jones. How could there be a show I love more than Indiana Jones? It's Fantasmic. Fantasmic is a really special show for me, and I'm going to tell you some more stories about Fantasmic when I get to reading that book, but it also features heavily in my favorite Kingdom Keepers book, so there's that. But the prompt for Fantasmic is to read a book with a show-stopping cover, and for that I picked We Set the Dark on Fire. I haven't heard anything about this book, but I've been excited about it, so we're reading it now, and I think the cover is gorgeous. Before I jump into any more stories or reading any more books, I'm going to quickly tell you about Out of Time. I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. It was pretty good, and that's all I really have to say about it. If you're looking for any short-ish pandemic reads and you want to start a series that like ends the first book on a cliffhanger and a series you could binge ostensibly, then I'd hand you this as a recommendation. That's where I'm at. I'll catch you when I start reading The Green Platoon for Ronto Wrap. One story that I do want to tell you about snacks in Hollywood Studios is actually about a meal. One of the first dining experiences that my family had in like a sit-down restaurant, specifically at Hollywood Studios, was the like diner. I forget what it's called. It's this diner. Anyway, their whole shtick is it's home cooking, it feels like home, blah, blah, blah. It was a terrifying night because I ordered food. There was no way I was going to be able to finish this food. But looking all around me, like I could see that waitresses were like making people finish their food or stuff, weird stuff like that. I didn't like it. And then I got even more terrified because this happened to my dad. Our waitress made him finish the last of his green beans. I felt really bad for him because he'd recently had jaw surgery. So that was like a ooh moment. But then I panicked because I was like, oh my God, I have like most of my meals still on my plate. My eyes are like 20 times bigger than my stomach, right? So I was like, oh my goodness, I have so much food. I'm going to barf everywhere if she makes me eat any more of this. And luckily, because I was a young child, she was like, I'll let you go this time, but you gotta learn to like clean your plate or whatever, which is still a thing I'm notoriously bad at. But yeah, I was terrified, but I got off scot-free. If I had had to eat any more chicken nuggets, fries, or soup, I would have just like exploded. But I've also had this slight fear in my mind of ever going back there now that I'm not a child and that they try to force me to eat food. And logically, I know you could tell them like, no, but in my head, I don't know, it seems like a scary prospect. So I don't even know if that place is still open, but if it is, I don't particularly want to go back to it. They'd probably hold me accountable for my like 3/4 full plate. Disney portions, it's either not enough or it's like way too much. There's no in between. And it also depends what snacks you've had that day. But yeah, that's my snack related story for Hollywood Studios. While my computer is preparing to launch itself straight up into space, exporting my Epcot vlog, I'm going to take a second to fill you in on where I am because it's actually October 12th now, how time has passed, and there are a couple things that I've kept from you because I haven't necessarily felt like vlogging and updating. So, oops, because now it's October 12th, and yesterday I finished all my prompts for Hollywood Studios, but I didn't even give you a wrap up of like my second book from Hollywood Studios. So we've got a bit of ground to cover. So going back a few days, I read The Green Platoon for my snack prompt for Hollywood Studios for Ronto Wrap. Read a book that's outside of your typical genre, and I would definitely say that The Green Platoon fits this because it is set in contemporary-ish times, but it's about this band of Irish military personnel who are on a UN peacekeeping mission to the Middle East, and that's definitely not what I typically read about. If I ever read about military groups of any kind, then it's typically like a historical fiction, you know, World War II type thing or something, or like the fact that I've been in the middle of War and Peace since March. Typically, I don't read a book that's strictly centered around that, so I chose this because it's out of my comfort zone. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I ended up giving this 4 stars. It was like very weird, and I don't know how to describe it to you. I'm not upset that I read it, and it was only like 156 pages. So zippity-doo-dah, zippity-day, we're done with that prompt. But before I got to talking about the Fantasmic prompt for a show-stopping cover and my thoughts about We Set the Dark on Fire, I wanted to talk a little bit about Hollywood Studios itself. I already told you the green bean story, unfortunate. But Fantasmic, right. Before we head to Fantasmic, I have Fantasmic stories to tell you. There are 2 that come to mind. One is so inconsequential, you're going to think I'm crazy for sharing it with you, and the second is like actually pretty cool. So first, the inconsequential one. So when my family went to Hollywood Studios one time, we went to see Fantasmic. It was after Fantasmic and everybody was clearing out. If you've never been to Fantasmic, they fit like a ton of people in this amphitheater style thing for the show, and it's outdoors and it's Florida, so it's always hot, but like it's so many people. Because imagine instead of taking like most of the visitors from the park that day and putting them like around the park in front of the castle where they can all see fireworks or something, you're putting them all in like one sitting area. So it's huge. So everybody was clearing out, and my family, in every instance in which people are clearing out, we just take our times. We don't try to get out. We don't try to like fight our way through or anything. We're just like, we're gonna get out. When we get out, we might all be tired, but we're like, it's not worth it, because it's not. And on this occasion, we were leaving Fantasmic and it was pretty slow going, but the things that people will leave behind at Disney parks is like crazy. So young me, I don't remember my exact age, but I was fairly young, and I saw that somebody had left their like commemorative tub of popcorn, and obviously I wasn't going to pick this up and like eat popcorn from it. It was somebody else had like touched that popcorn and stuff, but I was like, that souvenir bucket is worth money, and I really wanted it, and I'd never had a souvenir bucket from like a theme park for popcorn ever before, and so I was super excited. So my parents let me take it, and like when I got back to the hotel and stuff, like I washed it out and stuff. That was my first souvenir bucket. And I think that was still back when it was MGM, maybe, or it had just transferred to Hollywood Studios. It was right around that cusp of time, so I don't quite remember. But it's a bucket, I wish I had it with me, but it's back at home, that has like a Mickey and like a film director's hat with like a megaphone and stuff. It was super cute. So I still have that to this day, and I was so excited about it, and that's influenced me so much, and I love popcorn buckets so much from Disney that I have a little bit of a collection of popcorn buckets from Disney. So typically, popcorn is a snack that I get now. Every time I go to Disney, I get the souvenir bucket. I can get refills in a couple hours for like pretty cheap. I love popcorn. I need the salt for my dysautonomia, so it's like a win, 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 win. And then I get a souvenir bucket. Do I have anything to do with my souvenir buckets? No. So if you have any ideas on what to do with souvenir popcorn buckets, please help me, because they're just in my closet. Like, I wash them pretty thoroughly and then they just kind of sit there. And I love having them, but I don't know what to do with them. So please tell me. But that's my first Phantasmic story. And my second Phantasmic story is that when Harris and I went to Hollywood Studios, late summer, early fall of 2019, so this was just pre-COVID, we went to Hollywood Studios together, had lots of fun throughout the day, and I was dead set on going to Phantasmic. He kind of wanted to see the new Star Wars light show that there was, and we ended up catching a couple of minutes of it, even though I was killing the mood by being very grumpy about it after Phantasmic. We went to see Phantasmic, and we actually had front row seats to Phantasmic. And it was incredible, and my head was like exploding. It had been so long since I'd seen Phantasmic. I had never been that close before, and my vision is like terrible. So to really get that kind of view of it was like so cool, and it was just so fun. It was worth like the annoying kids behind us. It was worth sitting there for like a pretty long time beforehand. It was just so magical, like one of the most magical Disney moments for me, and like incredible. So that's why I had to do Phantasmic for this prompt. I read We Set the Dark on Fire, and I'm giving this, I think it was a 4 out of 5 stars, 4, maybe 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really, really, really enjoyed it, and I really want to talk about it, but that's for a future video, so you'll have to subscribe and stick around if you want to see my full thoughts on that. But that was a surprise for me, because I wasn't expecting anything from it, and I really, really loved it. Yeah, so it lived up to the Phantasmic hype, as it were. That being said, I finished all my prompts for Hollywood Studios. I'm going to hop over to Magic Kingdom for my next vlog, so if you want to stick around and see that, make sure you give this a big thumbs up and comment down below. Are you participating in the Magical Hopathon? If so, how's it going for you? If not, what is your favorite Disney park or favorite Disney memory? And subscribe for more reading, writing, and college lifestyle content. And until next time, bye humans, bye!